What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Creative Kingdom Society. Today, we are talking about the Star Tours episode of Behind the Attraction. Super cool. What a great episode. As we get started, Chuck, let's start off talking about what we consumed this week. After that, we'll get into the episode. But first, for you, what's something that you consumed this week that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Excited to be back. Excited to talk about one of my favorite um, um, things to consume, meaning Star Wars and all that. But one thing that I consumed since we last recorded was the Jungle Cruise, the movie.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
were,
What do you think?
were you able to watch it in
I
between?
did,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I was optimistic, like before. I was hoping for the best, right? I didn't know where to place the expectation exactly with regards to, it being a rock movie, it being an Emily Blunt movie. Should I set it at like a Pirates of the Caribbean expectation level? Is that too much? Are they pushing? Are they forcing this? Is it going to work? There was hesitantly optimistic, right?
Mhm.
And I was pleasantly surprised,
Mm.
and I was pleasantly satisfied.
Mhm.
Like I wasn't blown away. Like I don't think it was an epic or something. It wasn't like Star Wars level or big blockbuster type film,
Yeah.
but I was pleasantly, thoroughly satisfied.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to put it. You know, you could we could be critics and we could talk about different plot line issues, or maybe even, you mentioned Pirates of the Caribbean. We could talk about, well, there was certainly some alignment or maybe even a formula that maybe they're trying to follow. But I think if you put the expectation at, I'm here to have a fun time and think about it as, I just think that there's different expectations for movies. And if you put it in as, I'm coming to have a fun summer movie, then I think it's great.
Nailed it. Nailed it.
Yeah.
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 And I love the subtle nods to the attraction,
Yes.
and that they even the corny jokes weren't like forced, like
Yeah.
they pulled that off. I was worried they'd screw that up.
Yeah.
And I love that they were able to subtly include the movie into the ride. Are you familiar with how?
Well, I know that they have. I don't know exactly what they've done yet.
The only overt nod to the movie, as far as I understand, is their costumes are in the line.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And I
Cool.
thought that was a nice subtle way to not have to make an animatronic of The Rock or something.
Hmm.
Like that was cool too, I thought.
And
But
I like the adventure of it a lot. I like the
yeah,
idea of them being on the river. I won't give away too many details that
yeah,
people
I'm
have.
trying not to
Yeah,
spoil
yeah,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah,
But I liked a lot of that. I liked the adventurous nature of it.
yeah,
I liked the start in the city and then the adventure starting there. And
right.
I liked all of that. I think that's a good place to put it, is that it was, if you had your expectations of, I'm here to enjoy this and I'm here to have fun with it, then you're gonna have fun with it. If you're too overly critical and say like, well, nitpicking everything, it's not the
Yeah,
movie for you. But if you
yeah,
want to have a fun time, it's a great movie to watch.
yeah. And in the spirit of what did it make me want to go do after? It made me want to go watch The African Queen because I've never seen that before. But
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, did you consume anything else interesting since we last recorded?
I did, and what I consumed interesting, and I want to put this to make sure that I'm saying the right thing. So our friends at WDW News Tonight, they put out an episode celebrating the 483rd birthday special
Did
of
you watch that?
Explorers and
Yeah.
Adventurers.
Did you watch the whole thing?
I didn't finish the whole
Uh,
thing, but I watched a good portion of it. I loved it. It was great.
I've never seen any. No, I only recently saw for the first time an episode of News Tonight. I didn't realize what it was,
Yeah, it was
and
like a Tonight Show spoof.
and it's like thoroughly well done. Like I
Yeah.
thought it would be corny. I mean, it is corny and it is very
Yeah, but it's
neat.
corny on purpose, though.
And but it's still like and so like I haven't watched that one yet, but I'm looking forward to watching that one on the birthday
Totally fun.
anniversary.
Totally fun.
That's cool.
I think that those guys are great. Like what
Yeah,
they do, I think is awesome.
yeah.
And it's just a really cool thing. So anyway, that's what I consumed. And both of us, like I said, before this said our brains aren't quite working. Mine isn't quite working as well right now either. But that was what I consumed, and I enjoyed that.
Thoroughly. I look forward to it. Before we dive into the episode of the Star Tours episode of Behind the Attraction, I just wanted to ask: is there for a quick update on the Creative Kingdom Society Instagram page?
That's
Anything
the
cool going
thing.
on over there?
That's the thing that I couldn't remember when I was saying that there was something I was supposed to talk about, but
Well,
I
there
couldn't
we
remember
go.
what it was.
There-
So
we'll fill in each other's voids. It's okay.
yes,
We're good. Yeah.
exactly. So over at the Creative Kingdom Society Instagram, one thing was I just started looking online trying to find old vintage photos of the Matterhorn bobsled, and I just found these great photos. Found these great photos from the 50s and 60s. Found photos of the climbers that they used to have. Saw the photos. One thing I loved is from the Tomorrowland side. From the Tomorrowland side, seeing the sky buckets going over, seeing the monorail going by, and seeing the people mover going by. Back in those days, and I do think in this episode, they talk about some of the problems with Tomorrowland and some of the challenges there. I do think that that's one of the things that Tomorrowland of the past had really, really cool, had done really well that we don't see today is how much movement was going on. It was very dynamic with the sky buckets, with the waterfall. You can see it from the distance. You have the monorail, then you have the people mover, you have all this movement going on. And I just think that's a really cool thing. So these old photos, I posted those old photos. That's more likes, more comments than any other post that I've ever done is these old photos because people were just excited to see them. People were sharing some of their experiences and memories. Oh, I remember this, or oh, I was too young to remember it, but it looks so cool. Or lots of people saying things like, this dates me, but I remember going and seeing this and having that. And that was a really cool thing. As a note, this past week, I got to ride a real bobsled, and it was a bobsled that was for where the Salt Lake Olympics were in 2002. It's on the actual bobsled track.
That's so awesome.
In the summer, so it's concrete, and they just have wheels for it.
Like, are they like skateboard wheels or like what kind of like special wheels, like training wheels? Or
I'm sure they're not skateboard wheels, but to the novice, it looks like skateboard
or
wheels.
Maybe even the same kind of wheels that are on like roller coasters or something. Just like
they were small, like skateboard wheels, and there was a bunch of them. But we rolled very smoothly. But here's the deal: when I was on this, we went 72 miles an hour. There were 4 Gs as we went completely, like you're on the wall. Like here's the thing, like on the turns, you're up.
I had no idea it was 4 Gs.
4 Gs.
Wow.
4 Gs.
I never realized that.
Well, it's actually more when it's on ice. When it's on ice, they say they get up to 6. But they full on put a helmet on you, like a motorcycle with a face gear and everything.
Right.
And I had zero nerves going into this because I was just thinking, well, this is going to be a fast roller coaster. That's about it. And I've been on bobsleds many times, the Matterhorn bobsleds. I've been on the Matterhorn bobsleds, so I figure I'll be fine. We start going.
That's funny you made the comparison like that.
Well, I was gonna say is, it turned out the Matterhorn bobsleds are nothing like a real bobsled, nothing at all, because we're going down at the beginning. It's just a straightaway. It's just a
Right.
straightaway at the beginning, and at first I'm like, oh my goodness, this is super fast. Like this is so fast. But then when it does the first turn and we're completely sideways and we have 4 Gs, that was the moment that I realized this is like nothing I've ever done before.
Wow.
And I'm just along for this ride. And the roll bars right here. And put it this way, I'm a pretty big, strong guy, and I could not control my neck and head from bouncing back and forth, hitting like like the whole time. I like literally I was like, okay, I'm not gonna let it hit anymore. And it kept hitting the side. I could not, my neck was not strong enough.
Wow.
Um, that's how powerful this thing was. And then I asked him afterwards, what do you do this in the winter? And what happened, like when it's ice, do you do it in the winter? And they said, yes, we do it in the winter, but we don't do the straightaway. We start at the first turn. And they said the reason why is because if you do this on ice, you go up to between 80 and 90 or 85 and 90 miles an hour, and it has 6 Gs. And he said people who are not trained for that, it's not fun. Most of them throw up, and we just don't do it because it's not. Nobody likes it. No, it's not fun if you're not trained to do
That's
it. So it
wild,
was
man.
it was wild. And the truth is, next time you're on the Matterhorn, realize this is nothing like a real bobsled.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. And it's fascinating to see how that several points you made in there are going to weave in, I think, to this review of this episode. Uh, uh, Primarily, don't let me forget to talk about potentially vomiting. I gotta,
Motion
I got,
sickness.
I
Well,
got to riff on that, but also the whole theme of immersion, right? And that's the point, right? That the evolution of Disney Imagineering is like the more immersive experience, and like and how that's what the Jungle Cruise was, and the through line from the Jungle Cruise to Rise of the Resistance, which we'll talk about, right? Like
well, and
of
sorry, you go.
but the through line of immersion. And then just real quick to riff on your um let's just transition into the episode now. But as I do, the I wanted to show off this shirt that I got at Comic-Con one year. It has Mickey Mouse holding the lightsaber, saying, "I am your father," next to a kneeling down Darth Vader saying, "No." Because a lot of Lucasfilm fans, the Star Wars fans, were afraid of what Disney would do after the purchase, right? So,
Yes.
in that spirit, to tie that into your observation about the kinetic energy and the movement of the classic Tomorrowland on the move, where you could stand on the monorail loading platform and see in one shot like 7 or 8 vehicles moving in
Moving.
motion, and then look at that through the lens of Imagineering's finest version of Tomorrowland, arguably the whatever 1967 best version of Tomorrowland or whatever, and then the Tomorrowland on the move, and then juxtapose that to how they ruined Star Wars Land because of zero kinetic energy.
I
Zero.
I have to agree with that. On a platform where we on our first episode talked about how we want to keep things as positive as possible. But in terms of, like, Caitlin and I were talking about this last night because I watched this episode, the day it came out.
Yeah.
I needed to rewatch it because it was all jumbled of what happened on what episode.
Yeah.
So we rewatched it last night, and when they're going over and talking about the evolution, and they're talking with a lot of pride, as they should, for what they did.
And there's a lot
But
to be proud of.
there's a lot to be proud of.
Still, yes.
But what she pointed out, and it is interesting because they opened with only the one ride, only Smuggler's Run, and I think that the view of Galaxy's Edge would be different if they opened with both rides. And what she pointed out, though, is that the two rides are fantastic. They nailed those two rides. But when you look at,
Masterpieces.
yeah, unbelievable. And I think that there any criticism of Smuggler's Run was unfair, and it was because of wrong expectations. This is the B ride of the park. This isn't the e-ticket ride. That's Rise of the Resistance. But when looking at the land, even though it's so cool, it's so immersive, they're missing a couple things. One is kinetic energy. Second, and with the kinetic energy, it could also just be more characters, more droids, more shows. They could put lightsaber fights going on. They could put all sorts of things. I think they need to drop the timeline issue and allow those things to happen so that they can have movement. But then this was a through line, and this is about this episode and about last episode and the first one. What was the thing that was missing in the original Jungle Cruise? Humor. What was the thing that they needed to add into Haunted Mansion to make it something that would be timeless? Humor. And what's missing in Galaxy's Edge?
Galaxy's Edge. There's no
There's
humor.
there's no humor.
You
There's
nailed
no,
it. I never realized that. I never saw that connection. That's fascinating.
yeah, it's all serious. It's
Because
all
and
serious.
and to the point of the episode, the reason why Star Tours is a classic
The
and
humor.
why it's hard for them to get rid of it, right? They can't, it's because of the Pee Wee Herman humor. And who can we thank for that? Not the Imagineers, but George
That was George
Lucas.
Lucas. Yeah, George
Yeah.
Lucas.
Oh man. It was fascinating to see his contributions to the ride,
Yes. Yes.
and the things that he added and the things that he okayed, even though Lucasfilm didn't want to reshoot anything, he agreed that Disney knew what they were talking about, that the people want to fly through the trench. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
didn't want them to see, anything had been
Yeah.
shot before. That was
But
really cool.
his contributions of that of the improve of of the improvements
Yes.
on the newer version, it was C-3PO and the spy, that the rebel spy was his
That was his
idea.
idea.
Like it was just so cool to see, and like that one little clip of him walking off the ride, and they say, how was it, and he says, that was great, but then he realizes he's supposed to plug the rewrite ability, so he says, for the 300th time, you know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
And then they riff on the fact that you just get off and get back on, and they couldn't close the park for 3 days, and like how like it was upgradable, but it was too hard to upgrade because it was a masterpiece, like riffing on the whole how you can't upgrade the Haunted Mansion riff from the
Yeah.
last episode. Yeah.
But once again, this is my first note that's on my notebook here. The very first note was evolve and innovate. And once again, that's the through line of this whole show.
Yeah.
Is evolution and innovation, those two different things. It was interesting them talking about that, and how that was applied here. I feel like this whole show is about the change in the history. It's not about the history of the making of it. It's about the history of the evolution of it. And I love how they take that and then go to its, it's what else it inspired, what came next, those kind of things. Really cool. I love how that's the through line.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the again, it's the celebration of change,
Yeah.
you know.
Yes.
And so like we just going back to your point about staying positive or versus being critical, again, we're going to be 100% positive of content creators who create content based on what the entertainment they consumed.
Yes.
But it's okay to sometimes be critical of the corporation and the giant transnational corporation or whatever,
Yes.
like
Yes.
we could do that sometimes, because the reason why there's no kinetic motion, and it's always sad when you see some cool concept art later and they said, "Oh, that would have been cool." It's always sad, like that those things didn't get created, but it's always more sad when something is publicly announced by the corporation as coming and will be here, and marketing is made to promote it, and YouTube videos are shown of behind the scenes. It's trying to, did you see that tech series that like the
Yeah.
Steam sort of YouTube, what I forgot the name of that, Imagineering Steam YouTube thing,
Yeah.
where they showed footage of the kinetic motion ride for Star Wars Land, which was that supposed to be that thing where you 6 or 8 people got up and rode on like a wampa like character.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
And like it was on a track, but you could barely tell because it was all hairy, and like it would walk through the whole thing like
Yeah.
that. That's all you were missing.
Well, and some more characters, well, okay. I know you haven't been there yet, but take what they're doing. The one thing that they have nailed over at Avengers Campus is there's always something happening.
Yeah.
There's always something happening.
Yeah.
Robots are flying through the air.
They heard the critique of Star Wars Land and they fixed it for an event. Yeah.
Why can't they add that afterwards there?
You're right. You're right. They could add that. They can't add the ride. They can't put it in the ride now. They already screwed that up. But you can add that stuff. You're right. And
they can add more characters. They also, what I would like to see is them to drop the timeline so that they don't have to be, because it kind of feels like we're in like a bombed out town in Nazi Germany, and the Nazis are ruling the city, and
it feels gross.
We kind of have to hide and like and so there's that, because even when you see Rey, she's kind of like, oh, I gotta go because of Kenny said
it's
my
anxiety inducing in the wrong way. It's like
Kenny said something very funny after he went. We went together. It was the day we went, the three of us together. That was his first time there. And afterwards, he said, this place, like, it's all cool. I like what they did, but in terms of the feeling of it, it's like I was going to Toontown, but Mickey and the Fab Four are not there. And Peg Leg Pete is the one who's walking around, and he's taking people's popcorn and banging it out of their hands.
That's a great analogy. Or it's
like walking around.
Or it's like the judge and the Jekylls or Weasels. The judge and the Weasels, they actually paved over Toontown, and Roger Rabbit's sneaking around trying to hide from them, and he's all freaking out, and he wants you to freak out and hide with him. And it's like,
and that's another thing. And one thing that Tony Baxter said that I thought was really interesting when he was talking about making the ride, and they were looking at the black hole, and he had to say, we don't have a ride here. We want to ride, but we don't have a ride.
No, we don't have the love.
Yes.
We needed the love, the people's love.
That's what he said. The ride has to be about a movie that the people dearly love. And one of the things about Galaxy's Edge was they were making an entire land based on movies that hadn't even come out yet.
Or even a land that wasn't in the movies. There's that critique. Yeah,
that's true. Now, I don't mind that so much because I like the way the land looks, but I did realize one thing, and I think this should be our maybe one or two more things about critique of Galaxy's Edge, and then get into the actual episode. But when in the episode they showed a lot of the concept art, and I was blown back in time where I remembered seeing the concept art and being so excited, and remembering one simple thing that made me feel I didn't feel as excited about it when I walked in it. And it's so simple, it's so stupid, it's so little, and wouldn't cost that much money. And they were able to do it with the Jungle Cruise back in 1955. Trees.
Oh yeah.
There were so many trees in the concept art. They were
Yeah,
everywhere. It
yeah,
was so green,
yeah.
and that isn't
That's
there.
tough. That's tough. Yeah,
It's very hot
yeah.
in Galaxy's Edge, and there's no shade and there's no green. There is green right around Rise of Resistance, but when you're going out, there's just nowhere close to the amount of
That's a
trees
challenge.
that are in the concept art.
That's a challenge, and that's a fun juxtaposition to the Jungle Cruise episode, or the episodes about that one. I'm forgetting her name right now, but the landscape architect that,
Yes.
and those Disney History Institute episodes about the
Yeah.
whole landscaping thing,
Well, and how
like,
much they spent time, energy, and money on
and
getting that.
mindfully and intentionally for this
Even
reason. Yeah,
even the difference between Disneyland and California Adventure, there's just so many trees in Disneyland
yeah,
compared to California Adventure, and I just think I actually think that the landscaping is one of the reasons why Disneyland has that. It just has that warm, inviting feel.
yeah.
Plants are such a big deal. We just love being around
And
plants.
they nailed it. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And but here's how I'll tie us back. I'll get us back into the episode in a positive way. I think I finally figured out a way we can talk about when we allow ourselves to be critical, because I still have full faith in the Imagineers,
Me
right?
too.
So I still have full faith and nothing but respect for the creatives. It's not really that I'm ever really critical of the creatives. And that's the point. That's the point here, that for our whole, like, we're not going to be negative, is we're not going to be negative or critical of the creatives. We're
It's
going
not
to be critical of the suits and the corporate people that made the decision
made
to
the
cut the
decision.
costs.
Yes.
That's what we're critical of, and I think that's
Yes.
probably fair.
Yeah, I agreed. Even though, like, I'm a huge fan of Bob Iger. I've read his autobiography
Yeah,
multiple times.
he's still
Um,
not a creative, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah,
But I also, on a positive note here, I am very hopeful for what Galaxy's Edge will be a
yeah.
decade from now.
Yeah, that's the segue I wanted, because this current crop of Imagineers, like as much as we idolize, the original one, and the Raleigh Crump that we talked about before, and the Tony Baxter we talked about before, and he was great in this one too, deservedly so. But it's that next generation, the current crop, right?
Yeah.
The guy that fixed it, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name from the last episode, but the guy that fixed the Hatbox Ghost, and
Yeah.
that genius. And here's the segue back into the episode. I remember going to the D23 Expo where they first had the exhibit with the model, where
Mhm.
they unveiled the model of Star Wars Land, and they had all the Imagineers there involved, almost every single one of which I remember seeing there that was on this episode,
Yeah.
right? Including one, the Chris Beatty. He's the one that said he was all excited about getting to make a life-size play set.
Yeah.
So I've seen him before and heard him before and other things, but this particular year at D23, I dressed up as Dreamfinder,
Yes.
and my son dressed up as sort of a cosplaying Figment, but he had a Figment foam head that we made that took way too many hours because I didn't know what I was doing. But we pulled it off and it looked really nice. And we were just looking at the model in the Star Wars, we were geeking out over the Star Wars Land model, and I get this tap on my shoulder, and it's Chris Beatty's assistant, or one of the people, like, I don't know if it was his assistant or a production assistant of people that were interviewing Chris Beatty, and he stopped the interview because he wanted to come and get a picture with me and my son, because he loved the Dreamfinder and Figment getup, and not just because he liked that, but because and this will get us back into the episode, wanted to text it to his mentor, the father of Dreamfinder and Figment, Tony Baxter.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I would like, if that was like the peak of my geeking out, nerdy fanboy, like I couldn't believe.
That he wanted to text a picture of
And
you
he
to Tony Baxter.
stopped an interview, or he jumped out of one early. I couldn't tell, but like he was being interviewed, and he
Uh-huh.
sees me and my son, and he's like, "Oh, hold on," and he sends someone to tap me on the shoulder so that we can go take a picture with him. Like, like, and it was like, who's the fan of who? Like,
Yeah.
and then the legacy that he then right then showed me that he texted it to Tony Baxter, and I
Mm.
was like, I can't believe what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Like,
What a mind-blowing thing.
yeah,
So, okay, so this kind of goes into, this wasn't in the episode, but for everyone watching, if you're super nerdy and have 9 hours that you want to listen to some amazing content,
oh, good
Tony
plug.
Baxter.
I know where you're going here. This is an excellent plug. Go.
Okay,
Keep going.
so Tony Baxter on the Season Pass podcast, it's 9 episodes long. He talks about the future of Galaxy's Edge, and he says the thing that people don't understand is that it's not done. There's only
Yeah,
2 attractions there. There's only a few things, and there's tons of empty space. And he said even though the company is ran by people not creative, as people will criticize, but he says those people aren't going to waste that real estate. They
ooh,
have that in mind of what it's going to become. And he said when New Orleans Square opened, there was 0 attractions, only shops,
yeah, yeah,
only shops,
yeah.
0 attractions, only
Yeah,
shops.
Star Wars Lands was criticized for just being an expensive mall. Well, that's not new. Like,
And
yeah,
that's all they did.
New Orleans Square. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's all they did there was just shopping. And there was just, that was the whole thing was, and it's not even a themed shopping. It was just jewelry stores and
well,
stuff.
no, I would say it was more. I would say that was thoroughly immersive New Orleans style. Like that, they had that.
That's true. It
They
was
had like a
bringing something.
antique shop,
Yeah.
and like that, and with some real antiques. It was legit. It wasn't a fake. Like, I'd much rather them have a store like that than some store where they sell extra merch
Yeah.
made in China that's in every theme park. You know, like,
But what Tony Baxter does, though, when you listen to him talk about positive, talk about focusing on the good, anything that they talk about, his attitude is always here's the great things about it. Here's things in the past that you love that have a similar criticism to it, and you love it now. And his attitude is always just give it time. Just give it time. And I think a lot of those things, you know what? They had to try the idea of doing a timeline to know, because when I first heard the idea of it being a timeline, I thought, oh, that sounds cool. That sounds cool. That sounds like a cool thing. But they had to try it. They had to do it. And then ultimately, one of the lines that this wasn't a line. This was just something that I noticed when they're talking about creating the ride and what the ride was going to be. Is this going to be a roller coaster? No, that doesn't make sense for a space thing.
it'd be the size of an Angel Stadium.
Yeah, unless it's inside, and then to do all those things, it's gonna be this massive thing, and we have this small space,
How
and
do
it all
you put the
came down to,
galaxy in a small space? Yeah,
yeah, and it all came down to creativity comes from solving problems.
yeah.
I thought
A
that was a
good
really
point.
cool idea.
Good point. Well, before we riff on that point or another point, just to reiterate your beautiful point about how Tony Baxter is a master of empathetically listening to criticism,
Hmm.
validating it, and adding a positive spin or a positive, optimistic something to look forward to, or a devil's advocate sort of like, well, yeah, but if you think about it like this, then you
Yes.
could see. And he never sounds patronizing,
No.
and his delivery is so genuine. You could tell like he's not giving the company corporate speak line of spin of positivity, but you could tell what he's saying he came up with, and he influenced the corporate speak because he's so
Yes.
damn articulate,
Well,
right?
he says the same kind of things about Universal's attractions.
Yeah.
He talks like
He focuses on the positive so well.
well, hearing him talk about all the Harry Potter stuff at Universal, like he geeks out about that just as much as any kind of Disney stuff. He just loves creation and creators, and he's just excited to see it. It doesn't mean that um he's not he doesn't have the absence of criticism when it's due. Just listen to him talking about Figment today. Listen to him talking about Journey into Imagination today, or like he talked about I haven't been on this, but he talked about Hagrid's roller coaster with the motorcycles, and he talks about. I heard him talking about that, and he just said, it's really cool. I really liked it, but I just wish it was in a building because it
Yeah.
distracts when there's
You can see
sunlight.
the track.
See the track, and you can see other things, and you can
Yeah.
see that. And he just says, if it was in a building, then it would have been, next level. We're in a different world. So he will talk about things when it's
Yeah. Oh,
necessary.
yeah. But he does it in such a compassionate way.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right word, but like a creatively compassionate way.
Yes.
Yeah, and he nails it. But
Yep.
and I loved um his inclusion
Mm-hmm.
um in this episode specifically. But specifically in talking about the overcoming the challenges, like you were saying, overcoming the challenges of like solving a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the direction of the film, letting the hydraulic cylinders refill. How do you do that with a tractor beam? Uh, but talking about this particular episode of the show, and commenting on the creative contribution of actually the show itself is one thing that I absolutely loved in this episode, even though I didn't realize it was in the previous two, was the inclusion of their animation.
Mm.
Their drawings of how things worked helped me understand how Star Tours worked better, or I'm sorry, how partially how Star Tours worked with the things coming up and down. I think there was
Yeah.
an animation for that, and the animation for the
The
Carousel of
carousel.
Progress. Yeah,
The carousel for I always
the
forget the name.
Millennium Falcon ride.
Smuggler's Run.
Yeah,
The carousel, because I didn't even understand what was happening in. I knew that we went in and we went out a different door, even though you're supposed to feel like it's the same
yeah,
door.
but
I
I didn't
understood that,
understand.
but I
Yeah,
didn't know how they were doing it, and that's how they're able to get so many people in.
and so their use of the combination of the animation and the clips of like how the simulator works, and then how the elevators came up and down and what that room might have looked like if the lights were on. Like I never thought it through. I never understood. I just kind of just went with it, and
Yeah,
for all the right reasons, everyone just goes with it, right?
it's just a room.
Suspension of disbelief, right? And but one thing this episode nailed was helping you understand how it works. They
Yes,
nailed that.
it's so interesting. Have you ever been on Space Mountain with the lights on?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's talk about killing the illusion, because
Or I
like
remember also, and I totally wanted to riff on it at some point in here, riding the People Mover through Space Mountain when Space Mountain had its lights on was a whole nother experience,
see it from the outside.
Yeah. Because I saw all these damn clips of the Star Tours queue with the People Mover going through, and I thought, oh, talk about kinetic energy, man! Like
Yeah,
that was so magic to just ride the People Mover through the queue like that. And then,
yeah.
but to your point, right? Like seeing that stuff with the lights on, knowing how it works. I don't know if anyone's ever seen the Star Tours where the simulator is with the lights on. I don't know
Well,
if that
I mean,
even ever happens.
anyone who is not
Right.
employed by
Right,
them.
right, right, right.
I'm sure they got a,
So yeah, no, no, no. Yeah, I meant a
and,
guest. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it's probably a lit room. It's probably, lights
Sure.
are probably on because it's, there's no windows or anything. But that's a really cool thing. I'll tell you how much I like Star Tours. I like Star Tours so much that I'm willing to go on it. I don't go on it every time, but I go on it probably once a year, even knowing that I'm going to spend the next 45 minutes on a bench in
Oh,
Tomorrowland
do
feeling
you
like I'm going to puke.
do you get motion sickness?
I didn't when there was no glasses.
Oh, fascinating.
But once the glasses came, that's when I can go on it and be boring. Like I can go on it and take off the glasses and write it without the actual thing.
Wow, that's fascinating.
I can write it and close my eyes. So what I'll do when I go is I'll go if it's too bad, I'll just close my eyes and then I'll be okay. But like I said, I only go like once a year on it. Caitlin rides it every time. She rides it, and then I try while she's riding it, I try to get I practice my score on the Buzz Lightyear ride so that I can, keep impressing people who never ride it and
And
have
don't care.
that don't care at all. Hey, guess what? I got a higher score than you. They don't care. Um,
No, but
but
to your point about getting motions, and that's fascinating that I don't understand what the connection is, but through the 3D or without it. But
yeah,
that's a good segue for something I wanted to
yeah,
show
please.
you in the audience. Uh, Several years ago for Christmas, I was given this book called the Star Wars Vault. Came out in 2007, so before the sequels, but after the prequels, right? And this book is full of not just glossy photos, but lots of paper and plastic ephemera.
Hmm.
I don't know to what extent a lot of them are just replicas duplicated, or if they're original pieces of paper, or even like cells of animation, or even film strip, like is in like a lot of that sort of scrapbooky stuff is in here, including including and I don't remember how long they used these, and I don't honestly don't remember seeing them or not. I kind of have memories like, oh, I remember that when I was a kid, but probably not. I don't remember. I couldn't do much research and figure out the answer. I don't know how long these were on the ride, but they were at least on there at the beginning. You know what I'm about to show?
I'm guessing it's a bag.
The barf bags. Yeah,
Wow.
they put a barf bag in here, or I'm sorry, a vomit bag, but they say use in case of sickness. Star Tours Disneyland. You can tell they're the exact same size as a popcorn bag. So
Okay.
like that's probably the machine and the printer they used to make these
Yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
not like the kind that's on a plane,
Okay.
or that used to be on planes, right? Or maybe they still are. I don't know.
Now they're still there.
But it's not like that kind. But it's like, so you could tell it wasn't like it really intended to be used. It was sort of a gimmick.
Yeah.
I'd
Well,
like
it's
to.
supposed to be a tour,
Yeah,
supposed.
yeah. It was supposed to be the airport experience, right?
Yeah. That's super cool. I love that. And cuz I've never actually thrown up. I don't think it will ever make me actually throw up. I've never had that, but I just feel
You feel it. Yeah.
I feel awful afterwards. But I wish I could go and see all the combinations and just do it over and over again to see all the different ones. Um, do they have they must. Do they have a room, a room for what is that called, for inclusion, like they have over at the submarines? They have a room where
Oh,
you can
to
just
make it ADA
yeah, do
accessible.
they have that?
That's fascinating. That's a good question too. I don't know if it was one of those that was grandfathered in and didn't need to, or if it has one and I just don't know where it is. But that's a good question.
Because if
And
they did, I would like to watch it. Because
yeah, because you wouldn't. Yeah. That's a good question. You should
because
ask that next
I just
time you
want to
go.
see it. I want to see all the combinations.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done it. I've done it. I've definitely done it, but I don't do it enough to get to see all
Yeah.
of the different combinations. Because they said there's like 50 clips or something, or
Oh
was
yeah,
that 50
50,
combinations?
54 different combinations.
That's it. Okay,
So you've
54.
probably seen all the clips. There's like for the we're talking about the new version,
Yeah.
right? There's like 3 for the first act, and 3 for the middle act, and 3 for the closing act,
Okay.
and like 2 different ending versions and 2 different beginning versions.
Mhm.
So, or I kind of butchered that, but it's kind of like 2 different options for the first scene, 3 for the second, 3 for the third, 3 for the fourth, 2 for the fifth.
Mm.
And so like whatever that math is, there's 54 different combinations, but
Yeah.
you've probably seen them all. You've been on it
Okay.
enough to have seen them all.
Yeah. That makes sense. So another cool thing about the original that was in the movie or in the show was the idea of we're not making a movie, we're making a window.
Yeah, that was a fun, and again, explained by the master explainer himself,
Yeah.
not just to us, the audience and the public, but to Lucasfilm,
Yeah.
like to that excellent visual effects expert Dennis Mirren.
Yes.
You know, well, I guess I was the director, whatever. Like, it's not a movie. It's a window, and how it had to be a single shot,
A
and
window can't have cuts.
how he hid the cuts. Yeah, stuff you never think about. And like,
Yeah.
and then like Tony Baxter explaining how they had to do it within the limitations of what the simulator could do. Like, what sort of movie is ever made backwards like that? You know,
Based on what movements can be made, and I also never realized that it goes up and down 15 feet.
yeah, like
Huge.
to feel the
Yeah,
yeah,
like
and then
to go the that's a big space is
yeah,
15 feet. Um, but yeah, that's really interesting talking about the movement and what they can do there. But the idea of the cuts, I found that really fascinating.
brilliant, yeah, fascinating, yeah.
There's a movie that I it's one of my very favorite movies ever made. Very few people even know what it is, but it's a Hitchcock movie called The Rope. Have you ever heard of this movie?
No,
It's Jimmy Stewart is older, like he gray hair Jimmy Stewart. It's probably in the 70s, maybe it's late 60s, I don't know, but it was later on. And it's a movie, of course it's about murder because it's Hitchcock, that's just kind of what he does. But it's a movie where it's filmed with one camera like it's a play. It was filmed
like one
one
shot.
shot.
Like, was it really one shot, or was it just beautifully edited to appear as though it was one shot?
It's actually two shots, and the reason why is the technology only had a 60-minute
Oh wow,
availability.
right.
And so they did the same thing. It wasn't a flash. It's basically at halfway point through the movie, they do a one shot. It just happens to go right to the back of someone's black suit.
And that's the cut.
And then
Yeah,
that's it. And that's the
yeah,
one spot. But other than that, it was it was filmed as if it was a play.
yeah.
It was so they would have taken a break in the middle and then started over again. Um, to my knowledge, it was filmed immediately. They just took a break and then filmed the rest. So the whole movie was filmed in one day.
That's
I mean,
fascinating. Yeah.
it had to be one of the cheapest films ever made compared to how long these things they filmed in one day.
But the only
But
way you could pull that off is with a creative genius.
creative
And,
genius
right.
and actors like Jimmy Stewart and other
Another
incredible
creative
actors.
genius. Yeah, 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 yeah.
But that was cool seeing them talking about that in Star Wars, just because I'd thought about that before with that movie and that idea of like,
That's rad.
how do you make
That's something I had never thought about before, but now greatly appreciate how they pulled it off. Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And um, just talking about riffing on the film of that original version. Were you aware? I don't think they mentioned this in the episode. I don't remember. But are you aware of the Easter egg nod to Adventures Through Inner Space that's in the
No.
film? If you recall the original version, you go up and then you go forward and then you go left and then you go the wrong way, right? And then you goes down and you're in this big thing where you're not supposed to be. And off to the right, you see down at the bottom this big room that you fly through to get out of there with a bunch of mechanical equipment all scattered throughout. There's this one mechanical equipment right there, and it's the microscope from Adventures Through Inner Space.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I thought that was the coolest way to include a little Easter egg to the previous attraction there. And what's funny about that is that film, then the same film, and I want to riff on the film to video thing too, that because that was fascinating. But the
Yeah.
one film was then put in Tokyo and France and in all these other parks that never had Adventures Through Inner Space. You know what I mean?
But the
Like,
Easter egg's still there.
yeah. It's not like they would cut it out, but like,
Yeah.
why would you? But like, it's just cute that like somehow Monsanto's Adventures Through Inner Space got into these other parks
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah.
Hey, I can't remember, but was Star Tours sponsored by FedEx like Space Mountain was as well?
I don't think so. I don't remember if they ever had a sponsor, or maybe it was Kodak when it was film, or
Mm.
I don't remember. That's a good question. That's a good thing that to look up after, or people can put in the comments
Yes.
and correct us on
Yes.
that and anything else actually. But
Yeah.
but going back to the, oh wait, why were you asking about the sponsor?
Well, I was just because the whole thing with Star Tours is that it's a tourism company and that kind of thing.
They could have gotten some tourism company to
They could have,
sponsor.
but I just remember how during that period of time, and I think it was the 90s when they had
Right.
the FedEx
On
sponsor
Space
over
Mountain.
at
Yeah.
Space Mountain, it made those two feel like kind of similar, like
Oh yeah, like a shipping company and a touring company. Yeah.
a shipping company, a touring company, like
Like an
it just
airport sort of experience.
yeah, it's just
Yeah.
kind of funny, like the
That's
funny
interesting.
way, like
I
that's
wonder
a
if that was intentional, like, or not. That's
I don't
curious. Yeah,
know.
that's
But
interesting.
Tomorrowland is the one place in all Disney parks where there's just this constant need for change and innovation. And sometimes it's a great hit, and
And
sometimes it's
sometimes it's
kind of a
not.
big miss.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So here's a good segue with that good point of change and innovation, right? Um, it was difficult to mount a film projector on the front of the simulator, a
Yeah.
big old heavy film projector that had to be, and here's a nod to the Imagineering story show directed by Leslie Iwerks, whose
Mhm.
grandfather was Ub Iwerks,
Yes.
who invented the loop box. I think that's what it was called, or the
Loop cabinet.
loop cabinet,
Yeah.
so that the film would never touch itself and it could say, I never even realized in the 80s and 90s going on that as a kid that this isn't video.
Yeah.
This is film.
Uh-huh.
Like I
The
never
projector.
realized that until this episode.
Yeah.
I presumed growing up as a child, I presumed it was video. I didn't understand the difference. And I guess like there's a difference between like film and VHS and digital. Like, and I get the point that they made in this episode was when they were able to transition from the loop cabinet film to digital video, that reduced a lot of weight off of the front of the simulator.
Yeah.
So maybe it was able to do more, which maybe contributed to you getting more sick. I mean,
Maybe.
I'm sure there was a connection with the 3D too, but that was a fascinating transition to me. And then how they wove that into Lucas's desire to change it and how many times it's changed and how fun that is, you know?
Yeah, totally. When's the last time you watched a VHS? Have you just popped one in randomly, wanting to watch an old thing?
Oh, not for a decade
Okay,
or more.
it. I don't know how we watched those things. They were
Dude,
terrible.
dude, dude, I worked at Blockbuster once.
Uh huh.
But it was after VHS. It was only DVDs, you know,
Yeah,
but
but
still like yeah, to your point, like how did we watch that?
that's the thing is like it's interesting how VHS is what brought video home,
Right.
but in those days the quality difference between the theater and home was drastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely drastic. Like I'm sitting in my basement right now, and right over there, there's a projector, there's my wall. I could make it better if I did special paint and stuff like that. I haven't done that,
There's your
but
Disney attraction posters.
yeah, but what I'm saying though is like I have a sound system, I have all that kind of stuff, and like the theater, yes, it's still better, but the difference between theater and home today compared to theater and home in the 90s,
Dude,
it's so different.
dude, here's a beautiful segue. Um, remember how in the Imagineering story or in this episode or in this show or in other content we've consumed, like from Disney History Institute or whoever, that fear that that Hollywood faced with the invention of television,
Yeah.
and then Walt Disney, the filmmaker, his transition through ABC into television, into people's homes, and the fear of the movie makers that that would be the death of going to the theater. And
Yeah.
then the awkward competition between, okay, how do we make the theater going experience more? How do we make a theater movie based theme park? How do we take video home on VHS or DVD? To your point here, and then the pandemic shuts down movie theaters.
Yep.
Okay, what does Disney do and the corporate suits do? They don't reinvest into the parks. They drop 9 billion with a B dollars into Disney Plus, right? And the creation of the new, because people can enjoy this high quality HD 4K experience at home with their surround sound and their projector like you got in your basement. At home, what's going to happen to theaters now? They better serve food. What are they even going to survive? AMC stock is one of those
Yeah.
up and down. Or I don't even know anything about that. But to your point, Mandalorian, to a point you made earlier, and the reinvestment of the story team of John Favreau and Dave Filoni, and how they're overtaking Kathleen Kennedy, because Galaxy's Edge was a Kathleen Kennedy influenced idea, and the sequels and the push and the awkward. We just bought Lucasfilm. We gotta go this way for
Got to do synergy with everything new.
and then the corporate decision was probably flawed, to be kind, and then it ended up being what they didn't want it to be anyway, which was a place where 35 to 45-year-olds would spend a bunch of money, right? Like it's what they didn't want it to be, and what it was anyway.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so how do you fix it, right? Drop the timeline. You already put the money into the Mandoverse, the Mandalorian, and the Boba Fett, and the perfect, beautiful, creative storytelling symmetry that the current story team is just knocking out of the
Amazing.
park with everything they're doing. How do you put that into the parks? Put all those characters in the Mandoverse in Galaxy's Edge. Problem solved.
Totally.
Problem solved.
Totally.
Now, I know that was a long rant, but it
No,
kind of wove together the whole conversation, you know?
it makes a lot of sense. And was this yesterday or the day before? It was this week. This week they had the I didn't listen to it, but one of my friends who's heavily invested into Disney, we had a very interesting conversation last week about issues with Bob Chapek and him talking about how much he loves Bob Chapek and me talking. It was very different perspectives in the conversation because
Is your friend into merchandise?
he's into his stock going up. That's what he's into.
Oh, okay,
He's
okay, yeah.
he's
That's a
very
different sort of
heavily
fan. You know, that maybe one day we should have an episode where we talk to those sort of
it,
fans who their consumption is based upon being a shareholder.
it was fascinating because he's not a Disney, like he's
Nerd.
not like a super Disney fan.
Right,
He's a guy who is a very smart investor.
right.
He was on the bobsledding trip. We were there, together. And so at one of the nights having dinner, I was spouting some of my opinions. And he's like, I don't know, man. Like he's doing really great things and explained it. And I said, we have different definitions of great things because we're coming at this from a different perspective.
Yeah.
But he was telling me like he's took out his money in other places, put it all
Wow.
into not all, but very
A
heavily
lot.
invested
Yeah.
into Disney
Wow.
because of the big giant drop. So this was after the big drop, and then seeing their growth and what they're doing. And so he texted me and told me that hey, at the financial meeting that happened yesterday, Bob Chapek said that our number one priority as a company across all departments is direct to consumer, meaning Disney Plus. That
Well,
is our
dude,
number one priority
a
is growing.
$9 billion investment is
Yep.
not chump change, right? That
No.
that that is literally like two brand new Epcot centers adjusted for inflation. Yeah. Yeah. So when you think about like they feel like they're at the margins of what they could possibly make in the parks. And that's kind of heartbreaking. Whether it's true and it's just an economic fact and I have to accept it, or whether it's just like corporate think, I don't know. I'm not I'm not educated enough to understand, but it feels like they're on the margins of what they think they can earn at the parks. So what are they going to do now? Well, if we're at capacity, all we can do is charge people more for front of the line passes and things and special extra experiences and extra ticketed items. Like, but so like they're like, let's not invest anymore than we have to into the
Well,
parks. Let's
when you
dump it all into the direct to consumer membership, subscription, digital content where we can tell thoroughly worth it stories with thoroughly good big budget movie budgets, right? Blockbuster budgets where it can be an 8 or 10 hour story
Yep.
instead of I mean, so some of the things are doing perfectly right,
Yep.
but it's just like sad that it's at the detriment of the parks. And that's
Yeah.
what we like the most.
We you'd hope that they can reinvest that money there, but just in a perspective, Disney Plus is it's basically $8 a month, right? $8 a month. There are I do the bundle, so I can't exactly remember what it is, but I think it's
It's
$8 a
14 or
month.
50. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, they now own full ownership of Hulu. That just happened as well.
Oh, I didn't know. Yeah.
It was like 2 weeks ago. They now have complete. So that's going to change some things as well because they just
Yeah.
did that. But with just Disney Plus, we have $8. I know they hit 100 million subscribers. So you're looking at $800 million every month reoccurring, which is that's
That's a whole California adventure.
that's true every month. Also, that's an Avengers level blockbuster every month.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
So I
No, yeah,
mean,
that's fascinating. Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
crazy
Yeah.
they have that. Okay, on that we can go on that rant forever. But one thing I thought was really cool in the episode was the comparison of George Lucas to Walt Disney.
Oh, that's beautiful. And
And
this is
he
a good
called,
way. This is a good way to segue to the end because this was at the end of the episode too.
yes. And they
I
were,
got one more thing to share after this riff too.
okay.
At least, I mean, we could. I'm good for time if you want, but like I'm just saying, I've gone through most of my list, right? But I do
Yeah.
want to share one more. Don't let me forget. But I did also want to riff on this too. This is a beautiful point. Even when they wove they finished each other's sentence in that one clip,
Yeah.
like, but just the idea that they know what the public wants.
They know what the public wants, but I also like the comparison of Walt Disney has his big ideas, and then he has the Imagineers in the lab that can go and create it. And George Lucas has his big ideas, and he has Industrial Light and Magic in the lab to go and create it and make it
Yep.
happen.
Yep.
I love that idea of here's the big idea guy, and then here you go. Let
Yep.
let the engineers take care of it.
Yep.
Let these people make it happen. And that's both of them. Neither of them really created. George Lucas didn't create Star Wars. It's a whole team of people. He had this idea. Same thing with Walt Disney. He didn't create Disneyland. All these people
And
created it.
they knew who to put in what role.
Yes.
That's a huge strength of leadership, right? That's a
Yes.
leadership quality, is
Yes.
knowing who to give what assignment. Both of them mastered that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Doing that, it's such a cool thing. Like just the stuff that they did, those kind of comparisons were really cool. I'd love to hear your thought that you had that you wanted to share.
And here's even a segue to it that I didn't even think about until this very second. We have to mention, talking about George Lucas, how awesome it is that he legitimately was a fan of Disneyland and he was there on the second day it opened.
Yeah.
Like that's a really cool backstory.
Yeah.
And like how each influenced each, like the synergistic creativity, like it's cool to think about that. But thinking about him going as a child, I don't know if I didn't talk to you about this ahead of time, but this was the last thing that I want. I said I had three things to show you: my
Yeah,
shirt,
please.
my shirt, the barf bag, and one that we're gonna have to. And I know we don't want to edit these very much, but we're either gonna have to splice it in right here, or we could share it on the Instagram maybe. But I'll email it to you later. But I'm working on a little family video photo slideshow project, family project. And I stumbled across, I didn't even know my father had this, a picture of me, seven-ish years old, out in front of the construction sign for Star Tours.
Oh, that's amazing.
So that might be fun to use as a thumbnail or just
Of
show right
course.
here or put up on Instagram. We'll figure that out. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Maybe we'll forget and people in the comments will bug us as they're watching this 20 years in the future somehow. And they'll put in the comments, hey, where the hell was that photo you were supposed to show? That'd be great if any of the 6 of you out there watching would follow up on us with that to make sure I get it to Jake. Okay,
Yes.
please follow up and make sure we show that because I was just stoked to stumble across that.
Yeah.
Right after I watched this episode, I stumbled across that.
Did you go in that first 3 days?
I was only 7 and I don't remember, and I don't think so. I should ask my parents. I don't think that we were around. I do remember, though, I do actually have a vivid, it's one of my core memories of being at the opening night of Captain EO.
Oh, really?
I do remember that. And I remember seeing like B celebrities like from Night Court were there. I don't remember who else was there. But, and I remember visually, I remember the crowd, but I don't think, I don't have any memories at least of being there for the crazy 3-day Star Tours opening.
I want to know the logistics of it.
Oh, yeah. I want to hear podcasts with people talking about that nightmare.
If they're over 20, if they stayed open 24 hours,
3 days in a row.
How did they get the people out?
I don't think they did. I think that was the problem. Like they would just have to rely on people leaving.
Well, I mean, eventually you got to go to sleep. I mean, you really can't stay for 24. you can't stay awake for 24 hours without being miserable. So
Dude, imagine imagine all the Disney vloggers that we watch if something like that would spontaneously occur today.
yeah.
Like,
What do you mean they didn't close the doors? You just close.
imagine the live streamers and like freaking out and like being there the whole time and
Yeah.
like imagine the sheer number of hours of content that would be created by these people
Yeah.
just if something like that happened. Like how many gigs of terabytes of YouTube servers would be taken up by all these Disney live streamers
Totally.
if
Just
something like that happened today instead of 1987?
so it opened in 87, right?
Yeah,
That's it. Opened in
yeah.
87. Okay, so my dad told me that at I don't think it was in those 3 days, but it was maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But he said that they were staying open far later than they were supposed to. And but people watching, so my parents lived about, when there's no traffic, it's late at night, it's like 35 minutes away. And so if it was 87, that means all four of us would have been alive, and I would have been just 2 years old. And he said that the line for Star Tours was so long that they got in the line at I don't know what he said, but it was a reasonable time. They were going to do the ride and then go home. But they didn't end up going on the ride until something like 2 in the morning. And he decided that they weren't going to drive the 35 minutes home and got a hotel. And my mom might have left to take me. Maybe that was it. Maybe they left, because I'm trying to figure out how that all worked. Maybe
That's
my mom
fascinating.
left and got a hotel because I was 2 and probably wigging
Tired.
out,
Yeah,
and Kenny would have been 5 or whatever.
that's funny.
Maybe that's what. Maybe my mom took us to the hotel, and then my 2 older sisters stayed with my dad. But because I don't know, what did the guests rule the park? I mean, it seems like
Yeah,
now they shut
must have
down and
been
you leave.
chaos. It must have been chaos. I wonder what food they ran out of. I wonder how the custodial staff was acting. I wonder how angry people got and how mean they got. I wonder how if everyone was just stoked to wait in those stupid long lines that went out the park. Like I guess we should have interviewed our parents and your older sisters and see if they remembered anything from it.
Yeah, because
It's hard to put ourselves there.
I would love it if Todd James Pierce does an episode on
Oh, a
that.
deep dive.
That
Yeah.
should be
Hello,
what.
Todd James Pierce. Please, I know you're not watching this, but maybe one day, maybe we could be friends and you could do that. That would be awesome. Okay.
Because did you ever listen to his episode about the Yuppies invasion?
Yeah, that was fascinating.
But he went so deep dive into something I'd never even heard
Right.
of, and he had so much information. Imagine how much information is available with him deep diving into it. I hope he does that. I wanna end with my 3 funniest moments. Okay, 4 funniest moments from this episode because they're so quirky and funny.
Go on.
Number 1 is the Darth Vader ballet and how ridiculous that
Yeah. Yeah, I
is.
want to see if there's any film on that because I want to go back and look that up. Yeah, that looked
Yes.
hilarious.
So great. Then the next 2 were they kept doing a callback. They did a callback. I don't remember the situation, but when they said it was just supposed to say no, but then they showed the Emperor going no.
Oh yeah.
And then another time they showed Darth Vader going no.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's why I wore the shirt too. But yeah, no, yeah.
And then who was the Imagineer at the end that was talking about Galaxy's Edge, and he was talking about how excited he was for it. I don't remember his name. He was an Asian guy who had an earring.
Oh no, he's not an Imagineer. That's Chang. Is it Daniel or David Chang? He's from ILM. He's from
Okay.
Lucasfilm. He said some really cool stuff. Doug Chang. It's Doug Chang.
That's it.
Doug Chang. he said some really cool stuff about how, what Lucasfilm brought versus what Imagineers brought, and like
Brilliant.
this, and my favorite thing, and tell me if this was about you were going to say. I don't mean to steal your
No,
thunder,
no,
but
please do.
I love the power of a piece of art on a 15-year-old boy.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
That made me emotional.
Yeah,
Not
it
just
was
because
so
my
cool.
son is 15 and we geek out about different things, entertainment we consume, but I remember being that 15-year-old. They all riffed on being that 15-year-old. But the idea that some creative just sat down and drew something and it moved someone, and then they did this.
Yes. Yeah.
Woo!
And that's
That's
the whole thing.
fire.
No, that was not what I was going to say, because I was going to say a funny moment. But I love that. And that's super cool. So his name was Doug. Is that his
Yeah,
name?
Doug Chang. Yeah.
Doug Chang. There was one clip where they show a group of people doing something. It's just for a split second. There's writing on the screen, and there's an arrow pointing at Doug, and it says actual Doug footage.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, what the heck? This is so funny. Like,
It's just that's that beautiful comedy that this it's, whoever's behind the writing of the show or directing of the
yeah,
show, it
it's
just
so
nails
funny
it.
because it's not like they could have done that with Tony Baxter or with Tom Fitzgerald, because they're showing him younger, they're showing him they look completely different, but it looks like it's a video taken like 6 months earlier. He looks exactly the same, and it's just random actual Doug footage. It's like, what the heck?
Great comedy in this episode too. Yeah, but uh, uh, I've got lots more notes and lots more to rant about it, Star Wars and stuff. We do apologize if this is our longest episode ever.
So
Hey,
far.
this is Star Wars, and sorry, it's a galaxy and it's very big, and there's lots to talk about, right? But fascinating episode, fascinating Star Wars. Do you have any last Star Wars or episode related content to share right here before we close?
I think that I really touched upon everything that I wanted to talk about. Going back to the beginning, I think the theme of this episode is that creativity comes from solving problems,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
that to me was the episode, the theme of the Star Tours episode, and to me also the theme of this conversation is that solving problems bring creativity, and that's even problems that haven't been solved yet. Looking at Tony
Or things
Baxter's
that haven't been
leadership.
invented yet. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, geez, that was the one thing. The idea that they created Smuggler's Run, having faith that the technology would exist by the time they opened.
beautiful,
Crazy.
beautiful story. Yeah.
Yeah, but just that whole thing of they're going to solve they will be creative to solve the problems, because there's one thing that corporate people do, and that is they want to make sure that people keep coming back, because that's where the money comes from. And
and
then
and
that's
and
where the
and
Imagineers
they
come
want and they like to cut costs, and sometimes it's hard to invest into a problem solving enterprise that may or may not produce results, and to throw money at them to solve problems that may not even exist yet.
in. Yeah.
Like that sort of investment and expenditure, a lot of corporate suits don't want to put too much into. But beautiful example from this episode, um, the transition to digital was an improvement in efficiency, which was a reduction of maintenance, which was a reduction of costs, which means that investment in innovation ultimately pays for itself, sometimes many-fold over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Like it's worth investing, throwing money at creatives and investors and our inventors and problem solvers, because it ultimately will improve efficiency, will improve guest satisfaction, will keep people coming back. And there's a beautiful tension there and a synergy there. Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Well, I think that I'm good in terms of what to talk about here.
I'm
And
good too, man. But so to tease people for the next episode, uh, put in the comments your favorite parts, what you got out of this, what it made you want to do next. I want to go watch African Queen. I want to go look at the Star Wars ballet. I want to go look up a bunch of things. I want to go be optimistic about dreaming about solutions of how they could fix this. Put what you think you want to go and create next. Remember to keep consuming, keep creating.
may the force be with you.